Another key date in the offseason has come and gone as we now have the official 2025-26 schedule for the Carolina Hurricanes as they look to get ready for another 82-game gauntlet on their way to potentially having an eighth straight playoff appearance. That said, though, what are the key dates and what are some of the key things that are going to be happening this upcoming season for the Hurricanes?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking here and think about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers. Also the co-host of the Search Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my dudes here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun Monday show for you guys as we get to kind of do a quick glance over the schedule overall, kind of just seeing what is going to be happening this upcoming season for the Carolina Hurricanes as they enter their 28th season in the Raleigh area. Then we're going to talk about the Metro matchups and who the Hurricanes can be seeing 3 or 4 times this upcoming season. And then finally, talk about some key dates, potential fun matchups, and a lot of interesting things are going to be going out throughout the season. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So I know last week we were going to talk about the schedule is supposed to be for the Friday show, but just a lot of want to do a little bit more of diving into the schedule, take a look a bit more at it. So that's why we saved that for the Monday show. So we're kicking this week off with the schedule. 82 games. We now know what the gauntlet, what the journey is going to be like for the Hurricanes as they get ready to hopefully, knock on wood, which I think I have a pretty good feeling is going to happen, that the Hurricanes will make their 8th straight playoff appearances. But they are kicking off their season on Thursday, October 9th, and it's going to be against the New Jersey Devils. The thing is, this will be the 8th time in the last 9 seasons the Hurricanes start their first game of the season at home. And the thing, too, is they've won 4 of their last 5 season openers on home ice, which is actually pretty good, all things considered. You look at that for the Carolina Hurricanes. So it's definitely exciting for the fact that you get to have another home opener to start the season for the Hurricanes, and it's going to be in their own barn. So definitely going to be exciting for how that starts out. So you kind of start there, and then you go into that Saturday game where you face off against the Philadelphia Flyers, and then we all know what comes right after that is a very fun 2-week State Fair road trip. That is going to be a crazy one. And the thing, too, is when you look at that, is that's their longest stretch of games on the road, because they do have 4 road stretches throughout the season where if it's at least 4 games. This one is their season-long 6-game road trip, which takes a course over that span of the North Carolina State Fair. So they're going to get that out of the way. But this time, though, it's going to be with San Jose, Anaheim, LA against the Kings, Vegas, Colorado, and Dallas, spanning from October 14th through the 25th. So you do get that game on that Thursday, and then you get the game on Saturday, 6-game roadie, and then they come back and finish off the stretch of October with the game on the 28th against the Vegas Golden Knights, and then the New York Islanders on that 30th of October, right before Halloween. And then we kick off into November. But I think it's going to be a very interesting look at just what that is for the Hurricanes, because like I said, you get another home game to start the season. We know they've won 4 of their last 5. 8 of their last 9 seasons have started at home. And then you go, you got that game against the Flyers right after. So you got back-to-back Metro teams to start the regular season. And then it's that really long road trip that kind of kicks off the season that we usually know it to be. So, and it's very exciting to the fact, too, that it's not just the California or Western Canadian trip. This is straight up, you get California for 3 games, then you go to Vegas, then you go to Colorado, then Dallas. So it's like you go out to the West Coast, you get all the California games done, and then you slowly make your way back to the East Coast. And I like how they kind of did that too, where it's like you kind of go to California, make a stop in Nevada, then you come to Colorado, then you come to Dallas, and then you're back home. And the thing too is they only get 2 days off between the Dallas game and the game against Vegas. So they play the 25th, and then you have the 26th, 27th off, and then they come back and play the 28th. And even more so, before that road trip starts, they play on the 11th, then they have the 12th and the 13th off, and they play San Jose that 14th. And it's the 14th, the 16th, the 18th, the 20th, 2 days off between Vegas, Colorado. Then it's the 23rd, 25th, and then back home for the 28th. So there's not this 4 days in between of going out to California and then like 3 days coming back. This is really quick coming back into the rotation, because here's the thing though too. All this to be said, February 6th to the 22nd is the Olympics. That's why when you look at this schedule, why it's so condensed before and after, where there's not these super long stretches of games in between. Because when you look at the schedule, like you get, for looking at this overall, there's a lot of like 2 days in between, 1 day in between, stuff like that. Like the biggest stretch of days off for the Hurricanes is December 1st through the 3rd. They play Calgary November 30th. Then they don't play until Toronto. They play Toronto on the 4th of December. But the thing is, that's in the middle of a homestand. So you got New York, you get the Rangers, Winnipeg, and Calgary to finish off November. Then you got Toronto, Nashville, San Jose, Columbus to kick off December. So you have a 7-game homestand, but that stands from the 26th of November to the 9th of December. So you're talking almost like 2.5, like almost 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more of a big homestand, but that's a 3-game stretch in between. Then you got another 3-game stretch at the back end of December for Christmas, the 24th, 25th, and the 26th off in the middle of a 3-game homestand with a back-to-back at the end of that. And then their next biggest stretch of games off into January 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th. They have 4 days off in between playing the Ottawa Senators on the 24th in Ottawa, and they come back home to play Utah against the Mammoth. And then you have that really long stretch in between for the Winter Olympics. And the thing is, while it's the 6th through the 22nd for the Olympics, they still have the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of February off. So the Hurricanes play February 1st, 3rd, and the 5th with that game against the Rangers. Then they're not back playing games until February 26th. So 3 weeks in between games. So you got the 5th, then you got the 12th and the 19th of that Thursday off, and then you play that again until February 26th, that Thursday. So you're talking 3 weeks in between games. And then after that, it's just another three game stretch of days off between March 25th, 26th, and 27th. And that's it. So you really only have 3 really long stretches of games, or of 3 long stretches of breaks in between games. Like I said, you got December twice, the start of the month and for the Christmas break. And then you look at January, where you got 4 days off in between doing a road game in Ottawa, and you're back home against Utah. Then you have that super long break, which we don't count as that's the Winter Olympic break. But if we're talking just non-Olympic break, it's that January 4 days, March for 3 days, twice in December. So those are your really long days. Other than that, there's not a long stretches of games in between. So that's kind of what you're looking at. And that's a quick overview of just the schedule before we just go into Metro matchups and the big key dates and stuff like that. So like I said, you've got the 9th and 11th to start the season at home against the Metro teams. Then you have that long 6-game road trip that takes over 2 weeks going to California in the teams in the Central Division. And then other than that, you have 3 stretches where there's at least 3 or more days off for the Hurricanes. And then if you talk about the Winter Olympic break, that is almost 3 weeks without hockey for the Hurricanes, at least Of course, we're going to watch all the guys that are going to be on the Hurricanes, hopefully make it to the Olympic squad. All that said, we talked about just some quick glances of, how we're starting the season. First, a long road trip. Talk about some big breaks in between. But what are the Metro Division matchups looking like for the Carolina Hurricanes? Well, stick around. We'll talk about that here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. It's easy to use, quick for fast payouts, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers you can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we talked about the big overall, opening the season at home, talk about the first big kind of road trip for the Hurricanes to start the season off. But what about the Metro matchups? What are we looking at in terms of playing the teams in the Metropolitan Division? So, like I said, the first 2 games, you're going to get New Jersey, and then you get Philadelphia for your first 2 home games before you go out to the West Coast. Those are your first 2 Metro games right off the bat out of the way. The thing is, though, with how the schedule is set up, because I know going into the 26-27 season, they're adding 2 more games to the schedule. So you're going to have an 84-game schedule. But those 2 extra games are going to be in division. So now we're going to have even matchups, but that's for next season. So that being said, this upcoming season for 25-26, the Hurricanes are only playing 2 teams in the Metro Division 3 times while they play everyone else 4 times. So the 2 teams that are only playing 3 times this season will be the Washington Capitals, which will be on November 11th, December 11th, and January 31st. And then if you look at the New York Islanders, you're going to play them October 30th, April 4th, and April 14th. So your 2 Islander matchups are pretty much within a 10-day span of each other, while you get the Capitals basically once per month between November, December, and January. That said, you're going to get the New York Rangers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Devils, and the Flyers 4 times each. And the first 2 of those 4 games already done and dusted, first 2 games of the season. And then you'll get those teams 3 more times for the rest of the year. But that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of just your Metropolitan Division matchups when it comes to that. So like I said, so you get New Jersey, Philadelphia to start the year off. Then you got the Islanders on the 30th of October. Then it's on to Washington in November. And then you kind of get to, you got the Rangers on the 4th of November. And that's their first game is on the road there. And then you get the Rangers later that month on the 26th. So that's kind of what you're looking at. You're getting probably your home and roads split in between those games and stuff like that. So it's very interesting when you look at how division games, because we saw it last year. Like the Hurricanes were done with the Devils before the calendar flipped to 2025. But thankfully, we're not going to get this, you're going to finish all your teams off in your division. Like you're not going to have this certain team done already. Like you're kind of having a nice spread of games in between that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Hurricanes are going to look and say, because you're only getting the Washington 3 times. So you're only going to face the reigning Metro Division champions 3 times next season. And you only get you only get the Islanders 3 times as well. So I'm really curious to see how the Hurricanes are going to do, because we know how big the Metro Division is, but are the Capitals going to be the same this upcoming season like they were last year? Or was it just they're going to push for Ovi? He broke the record. Now this is like, okay, what does this look like for them? Are the Capitals going to be able to do what they did last year, or are they going to do the drop-off that maybe a lot of people thought they were going to do last year? How are the Islanders are going to be? Because you don't have Lou Lamoriello there. How's this roster going to look like? Because, yeah, they've made some moves, but did they make enough moves to make them a team in the Metro to fear? The Devils did get better. They've got a lot of, they've gotten some guys as well. Pittsburgh kind of did stuff, but not really. Columbus made some moves and brought some of their guys back. A lot of people are looking at the Metro Division as probably going to be the weakest division in the NHL. And like I said, some teams have made moves. Columbus made moves. The Devils made moves as well. The Rangers, they got Gavrikov. I'm really curious to see what the Rangers are going to do next season from, after having a disappointing last year. Is the Metro going to be a more tighter series? Is this going to be where we're going to see probably 4 or 5 teams from the Metro make it into the playoffs? I'm not really sure. So for the Hurricanes, if they put themselves in a good foot to start the season off, like they did last year going 14-4, but not having that struggling November and December where you're playing 500 hockey, you're winning 1, you're losing 1, you're winning 2, losing 2, losing 2, winning 1. As long as you take care of business in the first half of the season, have maybe a better November, December, you're not playing 500 hockey, and you're setting yourself up to have a better division run, I don't see why the Hurricanes can't win this division next season. Of course, we'll do a little bit more of a deeper dive of a season preview as we get closer to the season. But just looking at the Metro matchups, a couple teams have gotten better. But is it enough to where is the Hurricanes? I think they're pretty much the odds-on favorite to win the division right now. Yeah, like I said, Washington kind of got guys. Pittsburgh somewhat did stuff. I think it's the Devils and the Hurricanes that probably did the most work. The Rangers did get, Gavrikov and a couple other guys, but I'm looking at this division being like, maybe this is Hurricanes Devils, and then we'll figure it out from after we go from there. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens, if in terms of what the Islanders are going to do, the Rangers, the Capitals, maybe the Flyers, maybe the Jackets. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do something. But the good thing is, at least this is going to be the last time where we're going to see offsetting division games, where now next season you're going to have 4 games each between all your division teams. So it's kind of even right down the middle. You're going to see everyone at least 4 times, 2 home, 2 road. But this upcoming season, like I said, you got to take advantage of the games against the Capitals. You got to take advantage of the games against the Islanders because you only get to see them 3 times. And I've talked about it last year. When in terms of tiers of importance of getting your points, it's always your division, then it's your conference, and then it's the Western Conference. You want to take care of business in the division because that's really going to help you in terms of tiebreakers and just getting your more points, because then it helps because it gives you a 4-point swing on you. Because if you win, then you're jumping yourself farther ahead because now you got, okay, I got 2 extra points on these guys, and now they are going to be a little bit farther behind me. And then, in terms of games in hand, if they're like, if they've played 3 more games than me and I'm like 4 or 5 points ahead, then I can extend that if I'm winning games. So that's where I think if you got the Capitals 3 times, you got the Islanders 3 times, you're going to have to take advantage of those 6 points. Now, do I think they're going to get all 6? I mean, this is the NHL. Anyone can beat anyone. We talked about it last season. If you can at least get 2 wins out of those 3, I think you're feeling pretty good if you're the Carolina Hurricanes. At the worst, you're getting 3 out of a possible 6. If you go 500 in terms of points against Washington and the Islanders in those 3 games, okay, it's not the end of the world. At least you played 500 points percentage against those guys. But the best case scenario in 3 games against those 2, you at least want to get at least 2 wins out of those 3 games. If you can get an overtime point, if you can get an OT point out of it as well, then hey, 5 out of 6 isn't bad either. But you at least want to get 4 points at the best. It would be great to get 5 or 6, but at the worst, you want to get 3 points out of those 3 games. And of course, with the rest of the division, you at least want to win half. If you're playing like the lower teams in the bottom of the division, where I'm predicting later on in the summer, even with those teams in the bottom, you at least got to take care of business and get, hopefully 3 wins out of the 4 games, or you get enough to where you get 2 wins and some OT points, shootout points in there somewhere as well. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how the Hurricanes do against the Metro teams, where you're playing most of them 4 games, but you got the Capitals and the Islanders in only 3 games. So it definitely should be exciting in terms of all that. Now, we gave a quick glance, talking about some stuff like that. Now we talk about the Metro matchups, but what are the key dates and some like key home stands, road stands, stuff like that to keep an eye on for the Hurricanes of the coming season? So stick around. We'll talk about it here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So for the Hurricanes, they're going to have 10 Saturday games at Lenovo Center this season, where last year they had 7 and they went 4-3 in that stand. Now, here's the interesting part, too, when it comes to start times for the Hurricanes at home this season. All Monday through Saturday games are going to start at 7 p.m., except for the following games of Tuesday, October 28th against the Vegas Golden Knights. That's a 7:30 start because that's the NHL's Frozen Frenzy. Then Friday, November 28th against Winnipeg on Black Friday. That's a 5 p.m. start. And then Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is Monday, January 19th against the Buffalo Sabres. That is a 1:30 start. And then on Saturday, March 28th is a 5 p.m. start against the New Jersey Devils. And then all Sunday home games will start at 5 p.m. except for the one lone game against the Los Angeles Kings on Sunday, February 1st. That will be a 3 p.m. start. Of course, things could potentially change in terms of scheduling if it comes to maybe the NC State's basketball schedule or the NHL's national TV schedule. But for right now, there's only 5 games throughout the games at home that don't have the normal 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday starts or the Sunday 5 p.m. start, but those are also subject to change as well. But back to Saturday, there's 10 Saturday games at home, with one of them being a 5 p.m. start against the New Jersey Devils, but that, of course, that's subject to change. Now, we talk about the Metro matchups, and now we're talking about homestands. They're going to have a 7-game homestand at Lenovo Center from November 26th through December 9th, which is the longest homestand for the Hurricanes since April 13th through 17th of 2021, where that was an 8-game homestand where they went 5-2-1 over that span. So you're talking November 26th through the 9th. We kind of already talked about it back in segment 1, but just for a quick reminder, that is the New York Rangers, the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames, and you get the Maple Leafs, Nashville, San Jose, and then Columbus. That is the 7-game homestand that stretches from the 26th through the 9th. And we did mention a little bit ago the holidays. The Carolina Hurricanes do have a sandwich of games around Thanksgiving. So you'd be playing the New York Rangers on the 26th and the Winnipeg Jets on that 20th. So that is the start of that 7-game homestand. It's around Thanksgiving between the Rangers and the Jets. And now talking about for Christmas, they do have a Christmas break, which is part of that we were talking about some of those long stretches in between games. This is one of them. You know, we talked about first part of December, first, second, and third, 3 days in between games. This is the other one having Christmas Eve, Christmas, and the day after Christmas off. But you get the Florida Panthers on the 23rd and the Detroit Red Wings on the 27th. So if you are playing to stand for the holidays, well, good news. You got some hockey games to schedule around that. So you got the Rangers and the Jets book ending around Thanksgiving. Then, of course, the winter break, you got the Panthers right before, and then you get the Detroit Red Wings right after that. New Year's Eve, we have another New Year's Eve game, and this one's against the Montreal Canadiens, marking just the second New Year's Day home game in franchise history. But this one time we get the Canadiens, and the Hurricanes have won their last 4 New Year's Day games, including their lone home game back on January 1st, 2011 against New Jersey Devils, which was actually a 6-3 win, all things considered. Since arriving to Raleigh, North Carolina, the Hurricanes on January 1st, they're 4-0-1. They are unbeaten on New Year's Day games since relocating to Raleigh. And we all remember that crazy New Year's Day game a few years ago against the Columbus Blue Jackets, where they stormed back for a very huge come-from-behind win and took care of business. Now, the big dates you're going to need to circle is the games where the Hurricanes get to take on the two-time reigning champions, the Florida Panthers. They get to play them 3 times this season. Of course, we did talk about the 23rd of December. That is one of those games. But they also get to play them December 19th in Florida, and that's part of a Florida back-to-back. They get the Panthers the 19th, Tampa Bay the 20th. They come right back home on the 23rd to play the Panthers again. So to span of 5 days, you get to face the two-time champions in the span of that day. It's 2 games already. And then their last one, Friday, January 16th at home. And that's actually another back-to-back. We get Florida, and then you're on the road to New Jersey on the 17th, and you're right back home for the Sabres on the 19th. So 3 games in 4 days. But if you want to beat the best, you got to take on the best. So, or if you want to be the best, you got to take on the best. Stuff like that. So you get the Panthers in that aspect of taking on the champs. Now, I mentioned back-to-backs. This is where get ready for a lot of these guys. The Hurricanes are scheduled for 15 back-to-backs this upcoming season for 25-26. Last season, also 15 back-to-backs, where they went 16-14. So it was over 500, but not a record that you would really love to see. You hopefully try to get more out of that. But it's tough, man. It's tough playing back-to-backs, especially when you got 15 of those. And that was just them having the 4 Nations break, which wasn't very long. Now you're going to have a Winter Olympics break that includes a 3-week stretch between games from the 5th of February to the 26th of February, where in February alone, the Hurricanes play 5 games total in February. That's why you have 15 back-to-back. So they went 16-14 last year. Hopefully you get maybe 4 extra wins and you go 20-10. That'd be fantastic, but we will see how that plays out. But get ready for a lot of back-to-backs and a lot of 3 games in 4 days. Like I said last year, legs feed the wolves, and this team knows how to be conditioned, and that is going to be a very key aspect for the Hurricanes upcoming season. Get conditioned because you're going to be playing a lot of games in back-to-backs and a lot of 3 and 4s. Now, we talked about it earlier in the show, start of segment 1, where they do have that long road stand start off the year for the North Carolina State Fair, where they have 6 games in that road trip. And also, too, they have 4 road stretches of at least 4 games on the road. But here's the key thing, though, too, is the Hurricanes, their last 23 games of the regular season, 15 of those are on the road, and that's going to be starting off March 14th against Tampa Bay. And then in that stretch, you have home games against Pittsburgh on the 18th of March, New Jersey March 28th, Montreal March 29th. So there's your back-to-back. And then you have the Blue Jackets April 2nd, and then their last home game, Saturday, April 4th against New York Islanders. And that's also part of a back-to-back where they play at 7 o'clock Saturday night, and then that following Sunday, the day after, a 5 p.m. start against the Ottawa Senators. So, yikes. So you get the 7 p.m. start on April 4th, and then immediately got to fly to Ottawa to play a game less than 24 hours before the start of the game the night before with travel and going over the border. That is going to be a long day for those guys, and that's not even counting the fact they played this. And their last home game is actually April 7th against Boston, so I was wrong about that. Sorry. So you do have the game against the Islanders, but then you have that back-to-back, and then you got to play Boston on the 7th. Then you got Chicago, Utah on the 11th, and you finish the season off with a back-to-back against Philly on the road and the Islanders. So you finish the season with – so you start the season with 2 Metro teams in the Devils and the Flyers, and then you finish the season with a back-to-back on the road against Metro teams of the Flyers and then the Islanders. So, yeah, 15 of the last 23 games are on the road for the Carolina Hurricanes. What a way to finish off the season before you start the playoffs. So it's going to be a very fun season. I'm really curious to see how it plays out. If you're on YouTube or if you're listening to the audio version, Either go in the comments on YouTube, let me know what games are you excited for this upcoming season. What games do you have circled on your date? Or if you're listening to the audio version, hit me up on socials at OneTrueZach on X, or the podcast is LO_Hurricanes, and let me know what games you're excited for this upcoming season for your Carolina Hurricanes. And I don't know about you guys, but I am very excited because we are about less than 80 days away from opening night on October 9th against New Jersey Devils. We are getting so much closer to having Hurricanes hockey back once again. I don't know about you, but I am ready for it to be here. Until then, guys, this will be Monday edition of Hurricanes. Thank you for taking your first listen. For your podcast, there is no off season. We'll be bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. Also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where if you click the link trees on my bio, you can find all of my written content at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcast, it is the Search Cast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it is Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Kings to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Monday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.